Marilyn, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to get right into it. Could you please share, how did you come to your faith in Christ?
You know, I've been thinking about that because I knew that was one question that you would ask me. And I grew up in, I would say, a fairly typical Midwestern home. Went to Sunday school and church starting. But I will never forget this. I was 10 years old, and I was sitting in our church, in our sanctuary. I can see myself there. And I was listening to our pastor. We had a great pastor. He was young and fun and had a great wife, and she was fun. And I didn't know what I felt. I felt this sudden calm, and now I know it was the Holy Spirit. But I felt that when I was 10 years old. Now, that doesn't mean my life was easy after that, because it wasn't. However, it was my first feeling, and other times in my life when I prayed, when I was very down, that's when the Holy Spirit would tell me it's going to be okay.
So you said Midwest, about where?
Oh gosh, I grew up on a farm, if you could believe, in northeastern Missouri. Went to high school in a town of 1,300 people. Okay. So I was a hick from the sticks. Okay.
Northeastern Missouri, that's closer to St. Louis?
Was north of St. Louis.
North of St. Louis.
North of St. Louis, north of Columbia, about an hour.
And your parents, were they Christian?
Yes. Yes.
Was
they were.
any specific denomination?
Actually, we were disciples. I was raised disciples of Christ.
How would you describe that denomination compared to the others?
I think, as I understand, it's a spinoff from the Baptist Church. So I would say very similar, except not. We danced and we had fun, but very, very Bible based, very gospel based. It was actually kind of simple, really. We studied the Bible, and in Sunday school, we read the Bible, we learned the Bible verses, we learned the Bible stories. It was just pretty basic and pretty simple.
I remember very vividly as I went to attended college, my faith, especially when you start taking philosophy classes, your faith gets challenged. Did you have any of those situations or experiences?
If it was there, and I learned about it, but I didn't really feel challenged. I understood, and I've met a lot of kids from different places, and met kids of different faiths, but I still hung on to mine. I've hung on to mine my entire life.
How much is the Bible in your daily routine or weekly routine?
Larry and Larry's my husband, we have Bible study every morning. We're reading the Bible. I laugh. We're supposed to be reading it in a year, and I think we're on our third year now, and we're in Samuel, so it's going to take us a while. 2 Samuel, actually.
Wait, you're reading the Old Testament and the New Testament in a year?
Yeah, but it'll never happen.
that's
I think we're like in our fourth year of our year.
That's okay.
All right, it'll never happen. And then we have devotions. We love Jesus Calling, so we have that, and that's our everyday. We pray, and we've been married for 37 years.
Good for you guys.
However, I will tell you, since we have started doing that, we've gotten closer. We really have. And there's nothing that we can't talk about together and work out. And we don't always agree on how we see things, but that's okay.
How much of the Bible and being a Christian, both of you, how much has that affected or been a part of you guys being married for 37 years?
Oh, I think it's been a huge part. I will never forget, we had not been married for very long. And at our church, we were going through a Bible study, and it was aimed at how, as a couple, how to have a stronger marriage. We'd never fought so much in our married life as we did while we're going through this. And I said that to Larry, and he said, "Oh, Marilyn, God's just helping us practice."
Oh, that's great. I have to share that my wife and I started our Bible study, doing a Bible study together recently. We're coming up on, it'll be 14 years, and we just started, and I'm thinking, why didn't we start this a lot earlier?
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, the way I see it is, if you have two people that are joined together, if that joining is not glued together with the Scripture, when things get rough, who knows what's going to happen?
That's absolutely
Because
correct.
you don't have that absolute truth,
No.
right? You don't have a manual of, all right, when we have a disagreement, who's right, who's wrong? We both think we're right.
Of course.
But when you have the holy word of God saying this is the way it is, then you kind of can't argue about what's correct and what's not.
Probably the one that's been a little bit difficult has been how if you read most of it where it says that the wife is to be subservient to the husband. However, if you read the rest of that verse, which most people don't,
Yep.
it says, but the husband is to treat the wife the way Jesus treated the church.
Yes.
So that answers that part. And even though I am, and I'm sure my husband will be the first to tell you, I am a very strong-willed, independent person. However, Larry has always been the leader, the Christian leader in our home. That's what we both believe. We both believe in that's very, very strong with us. Now, what I will tell you that made a big difference, and this is how we got started in the Bible study, I found a lot of information about kingdom entrepreneurship and very, very interested in that. And one of the books that I found through that is, okay, we have the time in our life when, if you want to call it that we're saved, that we're baptized, what. Then we have the end of our life where I believe we go to sleep in Jesus until Jesus comes again. What do we do in the middle? That's our transformation. And when we started learning about our transformation and we started learning about, okay, we don't want to be a Christian that goes to church on Sunday and comes home on Monday and goes back and, we call them carnal Christians. Larry and I don't want to be. And we also totally believe, and in the work that we do with nonprofits in Kansas City, we totally believe that Jesus came. It's when God told us, you do this unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. And that's one of the struggles that I have in the Christian world, is that our organized religion is like we're siloed. And I have learned so much since we came here and since I was able to get involved in different Christian organizations that are non-denominational. But to try to help people in the church to understand this and to have that feeling, it's not easy. It's very, very much not easy. In fact, you and I both heard a speaker the other night, and that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that really stuck with me was thinking, what I'm doing now, will it matter in a million years? Will it matter for eternity? And that really puts a true perspective on what is most important on the things we're wasting our time on, or spending our time on, right? And I think that what you were referring to was a sanctification process. So whenever you're saved, right?
Yes.
What happens after that?
Exactly.
You just go about your day, And that
Exactly.
reminds me, I'm right in the middle of studying the Gospel of John, and 3:21 says, "But he who practices the truth comes to the light, so that his deeds may be manifested as having been done by God." So key word there is what?
Amen.
Practiced. Practice.
Yes.
Practices the truth, not just
Yes.
reads it. Obviously, that's the first part, but you gotta do it.
Yes.
And then what does that look
Yes.
like?
And you have to practice the fruits of the Spirit. And the fruits of the Spirit can be very difficult because Jesus told us to love everyone. Now, do you know how hard that is to do?
Yes, it is very difficult.
However, you pray about it. And also it brings in, and this brings back to kingdom entrepreneurship. But if you look at kingdom entrepreneurship and the fruits of the Spirit, they work together, because kingdom entrepreneurship, the first step of that is self-awareness. The second step is self-management. And when you go back and you think about the fruits of the Spirit, it's awareness, and then it's management. And you look at, like I said, it's easy to love somebody who's easy to love, but it's not so easy to love someone who's not so easy to love. And I wish I could remember his name. I can't remember, but a few months ago I heard a speaker, presenter, and he had grown up tough. I mean, he was part of the mob, and he went to prison. And when he went to prison, that's when he became a Christian. And so interesting to hear about that. But he also talks about, and I think it doesn't make any difference where you are. You know, there are people in prison who say they're saved, but then they go back and they act the same way they've always acted.
Right.
And there's people walking around every day, like you and me, that do that. But it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about goes back to discipline, right? Having that discipline. And when you say manage yourself, that really means self-discipline.
That's absolutely what it means.
Because even just what I was saying with the light, like we're supposed to be the light, right? Christ was the light.
Yes.
And then once we're saved, then we become part of that light. But what kind of bright light are we when we are not loving that person who just cut us off on the road when we're going to work? Right?
That's true.
And now we're just, maybe doing some obscene things or trying to like cut them off. Like, is that really showing people what the light looks like?
That's exactly
or
right.
even at the workplace when you have a customer who's irate, and
yes,
now you're like, oh, I'm going to get them back, or I'm not going to allow them to treat me like that. But in reality, is it really that big a deal? No, I don't. No. I think we're going to be fine. But I'm not sitting here saying it's easy. No. But I'm definitely sitting here saying that's the way it has to be, right?
You know, I was so blessed in my career to know so many people that I learned so much from. And one of my managers, he always said that leadership is service, and we came to serve. Jesus came to serve, and so do we. And looking at the difference between leadership and management, it's just like your kids. And I'm not telling you I never lost my kids. Oh, if they hear this, but I always wanted them to understand consequences.
Yep.
Yeah, but sometimes that meant that they had to do something. They weren't going to listen to me, and the only way they were going to understand it was if they had consequences. And I think that's the same way with God, because we still have our free will.
Yep.
He kept us. If you think about that, he loved us enough that he gave us our free will.
So one more question I have for you is, you mentioned that your husband is the leader in the household.
Yes.
But you're an A-type personality.
Totally.
So how do you deal with that verse where it says the wife must submit to the husband?
That's very interesting because I feel that in different situations, we show different parts of our personality. We have different roles. My role in business, my role in my career, definitely. I would not say I'm not an A-type personality. However, my husband is the voice of reason. And a lot of times he can say, okay, have you looked at it like this? And sometimes I get mad at him because he says that to me. But I understand, and by the way that he behaves and by the way that he is in our marriage, there's no question that he is the leader. And I know most people that know me probably think, oh, she's not telling the truth. But if he's actually against something, I have to think it through. And vice versa. When we first got married, he would tell me, I'd tell him I had an idea, and he told me it gave him a stomachache. Okay.
That's funny. Yeah, my wife is similar to you in A-type, but I know it's not the easiest thing for her to do, to submit to me, because she's very capable woman.
Exactly.
And I mean, she'd be fine if I passed on. She could handle stuff, right? But I think it's such just an amazing thing when a wife who's like that says, you know what, I'm just going to be obedient. But the husband, like you said, has to be obedient more.
That's right.
With loving the wife, just like you said, the Christ,
Yes.
like how Christ loved the church.
Yes.
And it has to go both ways. There cannot be any sort of lopsidedness on.
No, because it won't work.
Right.
It won't work. And
That's right. That's by God's design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is.
So tell me about your time, as we shift gears here, at New York Life Insurance Company.
Oh gosh. Well, I was with them 11 years. Prior to that, I was 17 years. When Larry and I first got married, we had our own business. I started my career in 1982, probably before you were born.
That's when I was born.
Yeah. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids, and I had $135 in my bank account. And that's how I started.
Wow.
And I retired as one of 6 females who have ever been managing partners with New York Life Insurance Company. And I worked hard.
I bet you did.
However, I was blessed. So I actually went into management with another company. It's no longer in existence, Lutheran Brotherhood. It was a very church-based organization, and I loved it. And I had a recruiter from New York Life who called me every 6 weeks for 2 years to get me to look at them. And I turned him down. Every time I turned him down. I had no reason to leave where I was. I loved my job. I was making good money. It was good. But then I saw the handwriting on the wall was that I was not going to have the opportunity to be where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a managing partner just to show that I could do it, to prove to myself that I could do it and that I could do it my way. So finally, I interviewed, and I started in Omaha, Nebraska, and I've been very blessed in that I was a good recruiter. I loved recruiting. I loved training people, teaching people. And that was in the insurance industry. If you're in management, that's what you do. That's the key. That's whatever you do, it doesn't matter unless you're recruiting. So I like here again, I was very blessed, and I met the goals that they said that I needed to meet to be promoted. So in 2004, they offered me a position in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I didn't know where it was. I had absolutely I had no clue. I was from the Midwest. I'd lived in Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska. what did I know about other than traveling? I'd been to New York City and other places. So we moved there. Okay. And it was interesting because in Omaha and New York Life has very nice offices. The idea is that someone walks in the door and they think, I want to work here. All right. Now, if anybody out here hears me that I'm telling you this, they're going to think, oh man, I walked in the door in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and it was a dump. It was a dump. Okay. And I thought, dear Lord, what did I do?
Yeah.
And then my next thought was, okay, all you've got to recruit to is you.
Hold that thought for a second. So what was your first business that you said you had?
Okay. Always in the insurance industry.
So you basically became an insurance agent?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I did.
What kind of insurance?
Life insurance and health insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you did that for how long or independently?
Independently, that was right. And then Larry and I got married, and we did that for 10 years.
And then after that, you got recruited by New York
Life.
No.
Then I was, my first management position was with another company who is now, they're no longer in business.
The Lutheran Brotherhood?
Yes, Lutheran Brotherhood. Yes.
So you went from being an entrepreneur, essentially your own boss, to now having a boss.
Now being a boss and having a boss.
Yeah.
I was in the
being
sandwich.
part of a kind of an organization now.
Yeah.
Yeah. As opposed to being more by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that experience?
Well, it was good. I liked it. I have always been a person who I'm very process oriented, and they had a process. And I knew that if I used that process, when I first started and first got my license, the gentleman that I worked for was very successful. And I thought, okay, all I have to do is what he does and I'll be successful too. Okay. And it worked. So, they had a good process. Lutheran Brotherhood had a great process, and I had learned the process and I was applying it and it was working. And that was one of the reasons I'm sure that I got offered the position. So because they didn't have to train me.
Was this process about, was it related to getting new business?
It was basically more related to recruiting. Here again, it was going back to yes. Yes. And it was recruiting and training. And I learned.
What did you like about that process?
It was so fun to see people who wanted to have more and be more, and it gave them an opportunity. I will never forget one of the first ladies that I hired. I was doing what we call field training with her. And we had met with a couple, and they were doing business with us. And we were driving back, and I looked over at her, and she had tears in her eyes. And she had tears running down her face. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I made more money today than I made in a month where I worked before. So that was my juice. That really was my juice. And I can look back and I can see at the people that I hired. Now, they may not always be with New York Life or with Lutheran Brotherhood. They've done other things, but they're still in the financial service industry. So I look at myself as being successful.
So when you were kind of doing it solo, I'm guessing you were doing a lot of sales.
Oh yeah.
And then did you transition to more training after that?
Yes.
Got it. So then
yes.
I have a question about the training process. So I think, let me ask you this. So how much on-site training did you usually have to do before you could let go?
A lot. Here again, it went to our process. Mm-hmm. I had a process called a round of 8. And that was 8 cases that I started with a new person, would go clear through, it was a 3-step process, and I would take them through the 3 steps. And it was basically classroom training, then modeling, and then overseeing. and watching.
What's modeling?
Okay, I would, using our system that I had taught, we met with potential clients.
Oh, okay.
And I modeled, we used the counselor soft sell approach, and I taught that, and I modeled that. I showed how that worked in the field.
So they're shadowing you.
Yes.
Showing them how to do the process.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. And then I observed them
Yeah.
doing the process. And then we did that with 8 cases. And
8 times you would do that.
So it was basically 24, 24 sessions, because there'd be, 8 in training, 8 in modeling, 8 in observing.
What if they weren't ready after 8?
Then we had to sit down and have a courageous conversation.
And what would that sound like?
Basically, I would say that you're a great person. You've got a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity, but unfortunately, we're not the right fit for you.
Wow. And that's because they just couldn't get it in 8 times.
Yeah, yes. And that didn't make them bad people.
No.
It just said that this wasn't quite the good fit. And I can go now to LinkedIn and I can look up people, or I find people on Facebook, or, reach out to them. They're in other parts of financial services, or I've had several go into real estate. They're very, very successful. I've had people that I trained that became trainers themselves.
Yeah, I this really speaks to me, because this is what we do at
I
my
know.
business too, right? So it's a lot of training, and
Yes.
one of the hardest things that I've always found over now 18 years of owning a business is getting people to do what you can do, and obviously,
Yes.
hopefully they can do better than you. But
Yes, you always want them to do better than you.
yes, that
Absolutely.
would be incredible. But I think the patience piece is where I struggle with, is how many times do we need to go over this? And regardless of my patience or not, I know the fact is I have to stay in there for as long as possible until they get it. But then you do bring up a good point. If it's taken longer than 8 times, that might be a core value misfit.
Yes.
So maybe
Yes.
they're just not, because the commitment might not be there.
The commitment, I would say more than the commitment, it's got to be the passion. And maybe commitment comes from passion.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I noticed that's one of your core values.
Yes.
That you got on the wall. By the front door.
Compassion. Yeah, compassion's one of ours. Yes.
However, there just are times when you need to help people help them make that decision, because you're not helping them if you don't.
Yeah, because you're holding them in a position that is not a good fit for them.
That's correct.
And they're just forcing it. In reality, let's get you in a position where you don't have to force it.
Now, what I will tell you is, if you have your process and you're true to your process, you will be more patient.
So we must have a clearly
You've got to have a
step-by-step
clearly
process.
step-by-step defined process.
Because if you don't, then you're just winging it.
Exactly.
And of course, you're going to get frustrated, and of course, you're going to get impatient.
And you're not going to teach them everything you need to teach them. You're going to forget things, because we get, especially when you're like I am and like you are, we do get, we can get frustrated easily. So that's why we have to be true to that patience. Now, saying that has not always been true. There have been times I've lost my patience. Could I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do this real quick. I was training an agent in Nebraska, and we had an appointment. We went to see with a couple, and we met with a wife first. And we were talking about where to put some money and what to do with their money. She was a piece of cake. She was great. I mean, she agreed with everything. She was wonderful. We made an appointment to come back because you're always in a situation, and I'm going to tell you this, even with your hiring, you need to meet the spouse.
Sure. Yeah.
And of course, especially when you're making financial decisions. So we go back, and now keep your mind, I'm training this new guy, all right? And I'm doing the appointment, and the husband was just awful. I mean, everything I would say, he would disagree with me. He would say, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
So we'd probably been there 20, 30 minutes, okay? And I'd listen to him, and finally I looked at him and I said, he said, and I suppose you make money on this if I did this. And I looked at him and I said, no, we're stupid. We work for nothing. I thought, and he did just like what you did. He laughed. Now, the poor guy that I was training, I'm sure he wished that the earth would open up and swallow him, okay? But the guy, and this goes back to reading personalities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And knowing how to read people.
Yeah.
So, and the guy laughed, took the application and signed it and wrote the check.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that
is
funny?
Incredible. Because
Isn't that
that's
funny?
not going to be in the manual to say, no,
no.
we're stupid and we just do this for free.
Yes, I know.
How do you teach that? Actually, hold on to that.
I'm not sure you do teach it. I think it's unfortunately, I think it's in your genes.
That's hilarious.
Okay.
So my question for you now is, sounds like you did a lot of recruiting of insurance agents. You've had a lot of experience with that, training them. What was your secret to recruiting those great agents?
Okay, I'm going to go back to process. And I'm also going to go back to writing down my ideal candidate. And I wrote down what I looked for in my ideal candidate. And obviously I got that from other people who had been successful. Then I developed a set of questions, my own questions, that was to help me determine how many of these attributes they had. If I could get 60% or more of the qualities of a successful agent, they had a great, they had a great shot. I was never going to find 100%. However, and I was very fortunate, I found some 80%. And so it was, here again, and I believe I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but I think a lot of it was my personality. And the other thing that I did was I made sure spouses were on board. I hired both men and women, and I have not hired people because when I met their spouse, I knew it wasn't going to work.
Dive deeper into that one.
Okay. Not everyone can deal, and this here again doesn't make them bad people, but not everyone can deal with living on commission. And it's rough when you start, and you start any kind of a business, it's going to take you a good 3 years to get going. And it's hard. And the ups and downs of owning your own business and working with people. And if the spouse was not supportive, and here again, doesn't make any difference, male or female, if they weren't supportive, I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I needed to meet them, and they needed to meet me. And they needed to understand how everything was going to work. So one of the things that I did, I would have, and we did these very informally at our home, I would invite maybe, depending on how many, 5 to 6 prospects and their spouses to our home for a meal. And then I would have my training staff there with their spouses. And I would also have successful agents there, 2 successful agents.
You had a full
and
house.
We would have a discussion. We would have a discussion. And they were able to ask any questions that they wanted to ask of both the spouses. And I also had a spouse's breakfast. And that worked out really, really well too.
So what kind of question did you ask, or what kind of approach did you take to make sure that the spouse was on board with the commission only?
Well, here again, we would talk about it. And especially, I wanted spouses of the successful agents to tell them what it was like when they got started. And I had one spouse, she said, and this is pretty dry, but she said, we can only turn the heat on at certain times because, we had to watch our money. Another spouse said, I had to ask how much money was in our bank account and can I afford to go to the grocery store and do this? But people had, they were willing to sacrifice and they believed in their spouse and they believed in us. They believed in me.
So you actually had the current agents, the successful ones,
yes,
communicate to the prospect spouse
yes.
of what life could look like in the
yes.
beginning of this journey.
Yeah, and the spouses, more the spouses of the successful agents.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And I, and they told it the way it was.
So you were obviously observing all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So then what did you look for in the prospect spouse when they heard all of this on, this is not going to be a fit?
That's a tough one. Here again, that goes back to understanding emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to being able to read body language. And it also went back to how did they communicate with me? And if they walked out the door and we had a great relationship, and we were talking, we had a good relationship, it was fine. I can remember one that the spouse was a doctor. But I could see with that spouse's personality that when the agent came home, they would be standing in the doorway, tapping their foot and saying, well, how much did you make today? And I could tell, here again, that goes back to emotional intelligence. And it goes back to reading body language.
So that'd be a red flag for you.
Absolutely. I didn't hire the person.
Why is that a red flag if the spouse is sitting there with tapping their foot?
Well, think about it. How would you feel if you came home and you had a rotten day, which we all have them. I know you've had them and I've had them. And you came in and your wife was sitting at the kitchen table and she says, well, how many new people did you sign up today? And you had signed up none. Mm-hmm. And you know what happens, all right? And then there are some people that they just have to know how much income is going to come in. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't make them bad people. It's just part of their emotional intelligence and part of the way that they feel. And if that just isn't going to work and it's going to cause problems in the marriage. And again, if there's problems in the marriage, to go to work and focus on something else can be almost impossible at times.
Yeah.
So I, as strange as this sounds, even with what you do, and you know who you want to hire, and you and I have talked about this. Mm-hmm. And I would say, do something so that you meet the spouse.
That's a great point. And if they don't have a spouse, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That's true.
A lot of our instructors are single, so we kind of have to, or we don't have to do that yet. But I definitely see the power in that. So as we fast forward a little bit into the next part of your journey of joining New York Life, and you basically were kind of doing the same thing there.
Yes, I did do the same thing.
Training and recruiting and
yes, only on a much larger scale.
Like how much larger are we talking here?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. I don't know for sure, but I can do maybe 72. There were probably 140, 150 recruiters at Lutheran Brotherhood. At New York Life, there was probably 1,500, 2,000.
And what was your role in all of that?
It was great. My role was great. here again, I was very blessed.
Were you managing
people.
all those people?
No. I started from scratch. You had to start from scratch, and you had to build. We all started in the same place.
As a recruiter,
you started
other
with
agents
nothing.
under you.
Yeah.
And then you build your team.
That's right.
And then the bigger team gets promoted.
That's exactly right.
Got it.
And it's not only the hiring them, it's the keeping them.
Yeah.
It's your retention. Because like I had a VP say one time, it's no good bringing them in the front door if we can't keep them from going out the back door.
That is 100% correct with all businesses.
Exactly.
All the time, every day.
Exactly. Because think about it. Think about what it costs to hire a new person.
Yes. I would even say you can apply that to customers. How much does it cost for you to recruit that customer into your business and even just step in the doors? And this is what we talk about a lot here is the amount of time and resources it takes to have that parent come in, just a step in is substantial.
Oh,
so we have to treat it like the president of the United States is here.
Absolutely.
Or we just threw away all of our time and resources that we just spent.
Well, I don't know if you ever watched Shark Tank or not.
No,
but okay. Remember when they talk about customer acquisition? How much does it cost to bring a new customer in that door? And then, so how much does it cost, as opposed to how much does it cost to keep a customer?
Right.
So I'm going to go back to emotional intelligence on that part, because there's a lot to do with your customer, their mindset. What is their personality? How are they going to look at things? If you have a parent that comes in and they're an extremely analytical parent, you have got to treat them differently than you have the Marilyn Arnolds who come in and see it and think, oh, wow, this is great. My kid's coming.
All I have to say to that is preach it, sister. This is so important.
It's true. I don't care if you sell widgets.
Right.
It doesn't make any difference.
You can't treat everybody the exact same. That goes in the EQ, emotional intelligence.
That's right.
So, there's the book that I just recently completed. I think it might be on my shelf here, but it is Unreasonable Hospitality. And it was about this restaurant. I already talked about this in a previous episode. And essentially what they did was they actually Googled the guest, found their profile, Facebook, whatever it may be.
Yes.
So they can at least know what they look like when they come in, and they can greet them by their first name or Mrs. or Mr. Think about like going the extra mile just for that little piece. And I would even say if you start seeing photos of them, then you can start putting some sort of picture together of their personality. So then when they are arriving, maybe you got to be a little bit more friendly, or you got to be a little bit less, so it's not overwhelming them.
And you have to know if that person here again is analytical and they want to know everything that's going to happen to their child,
right? Because
you are working with our greatest asset.
100%.
You're working with children. And you're working to develop children. So that analytical parent, as opposed to there's going to be, and doesn't make him wrong, but there's going to be the parent that's going to come in, and if you go into too much detail, they're going to get bored and they're going to walk out the door.
Yes.
And they're going to think, well, my gosh, he's talking about all this stuff. When's he going to teach my kid?
That's right. That is so on target there.
And then there's going to be, this is so interesting to me, and then there's going to be the parent that wants to know whose kids are doing this before they decide whether or not their kid. Now, how do you identify those?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and then here again, there's going to be the ones that come in and make the quick decisions. And how do you keep them happy? Because they're going to come in and they're going to like you and sign their kid up. Well, then they're going to go down the street and go to your competition, and they're going to like them better than you. and they're going to drop you and go to your competition.
Yep.
So you got to keep that from happening too.
Exactly. It sounds like you've worked here a while.
No, but I'm thinking maybe I might like to. No, that's what I learned. That was what, if I could say, the most important thing that I learned was that. Because I learned it in recruiting, but then when I became a managing partner, I also had to manage agents who looked at me like, well, who's she?
Yeah.
You know, how's she going to help us?
I can only imagine. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit better today, but you having to manage men, right? I can't imagine that was an easy thing.
Depended on the man.
Yeah. And the ones who don't, then you don't even recruit them.
Well, but if I knew, excuse me, most generally it was the ones that after I became a managing partner that had been there for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years. And so that was the ones that had more difficult mindset. So here again, it goes back to that emotional intelligence.
So how did you approach that situation with those seasoned males who are pretty stuck in their ways and they see things the way what they want to see them, and now you are this young lady coming in, going alongside of them, and they're probably looking at you going, "What are you doing here?"
Yes, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
You know, nobody else has done anything for me in the last 10 years. What are you going to do? Okay. One of the things that New York Life did that was really great was they gave you a budget and they gave you money so that you could take existing agents and their spouses to dinner. And that was when you started learning about them. You ask questions. My grandma used to tell me there's a good reason why God gave us one mouth and two ears. I don't know if I've ever really understood that. Okay, I think she was telling me that for a reason. But seriously, if you understood their background and then you understood how they came, you asked them questions, had them tell you stories. And then when you understood that, then you understood how to deal with them.
So you're getting to know them, understanding their story, their background.
Yeah.
And really what makes them tick.
What makes them tick.
And then you adjust your approach to them based on who they are.
Exactly.
You'd think that more people would understand this, but it seems like a rare approach these days.
It's because you have to forget about yourself. With you, and it's the same way with me, with your business, it's not about you.
Nope.
It's about those little guys. And it's about, okay, am I picking the right people to take care of, I'm teaching these kids a lot. You are. I mean, you're teaching, I go back to my youngest grandson. Well, okay, our one of our great-grandchildren, he's 6 and he just started wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And we're watching his dad Thanksgiving weekend, we're watching his dad and he's working with us. He's working with him, teaching him the moves and teaching him how to wrestle. But you think about wrestling, you've got to be aggressive, So you're teaching kids and kids they need to be aggressive, but not mean.
Right.
Well, it's so here again, you've got to figure those kids out. And they've got to want to come here.
Yep.
It's no different with recruiting anybody. They have to want to come to you.
So with recruiting, one question I had was, how did you guys, or even maybe in your earlier years, how did you approach increasing your prospect list?
Well, quite frankly, networking. Networking and being out in the community. Yeah. It's interesting. One of the things that I'm doing right now is we are looking at that, social media is the new networking. If you think about it, it is. How many people do you know that met their spouses on the internet.
It's actually becoming extremely normal.
I know.
Which is bizarre to me, but
well, it is. Well, think about being me and think about how bizarre it is. But no, one of my grandsons, he has a new girlfriend, and he's telling me he has a new girlfriend. And I said, well, where did you meet her? And he kind of looks kind of funny. He says, on Facebook. Well, come to find out, she lives like 5 minutes down the street from him, and very similar backgrounds, and but he kind of puts his head down and says on Facebook. So it's kind of cute, but it is social media, and if you here again, you've got to, how do we marry emotional intelligence with artificial intelligence? Because it's coming.
Yeah.
And I'm even using right now, I'm using programs that help me to rewrite what I write.
Yeah, it's crazy what I can do nowadays.
I know, but saves you so much time. And gets so much done. But no, that's how, it was getting out in the community, and it was doing the best job that you could do. When Larry and I had our business, we did a lot of health insurance. And health insurance, you wanted your claims paid. You wanted your clients to have their claims paid.
Yeah.
We had a specific person who worked for us, and that's what she did. She filed claims and she checked on claims, and because we wanted them to be happy, because then they're going to refer us to other people. Plus, it makes you feel good. You get a lot of gratitude. There's a lot of satisfaction in seeing someone trust you, and it works.
So how long were you at New York Life Insurance?
I was there 11 years.
Okay. And then after that, is this when you started Success by Design? So tell me more about
Okay. I started another business before that. I started Marilyn Arnold Designs. Okay. And something totally different. I did repurposing of different, for example, and I still do some of it, although I don't do that much anymore. I have someone who works for me who does most of it. But like, we take T-shirts and make blankets out of them, quilts out of them for graduates. We've done all kinds of that, of those types of things. We do that. Like I said, I've turned it over to my person who works with me. So she does the most of it now. And I do it if someone asks me to, but.
You're actually doing the sewing and all that.
We did that. Yeah. I don't anymore. I have someone who does it, but very blessed. But then what I found with that was you've either got to get bigger, and it's very, very difficult to find people that are talented enough that you can trust them.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole different ballgame than just doing something for yourself.
Sure.
Doing something for a customer.
Yeah.
All right. So then COVID came along, and I was looking for something different, and I got interested in transformative social media and started learning about that. And about the same time is when I met George Commons. I know you've had George on your show, and started volunteering with Barnabas Group. And
what's transformative social media?
Okay, transformative social media is, for example, it's like movement. It's like catching the eye of someone. It's like, I'm sorry. It's like having drones to do an overhead look. So it's with the idea that social media is to bring in customers. And it's got to be good. It's got to be professional. You have to make it easy. I don't know if you've ever done this, but have you ever gone on something like the other night? I wanted to buy some tickets for an event. Well, it was so complicated doing it, I quit.
Don't even get me started on this one.
Uh-huh.
We don't have enough time for me to talk about this one, but the most mind-blowing thing for me is when a business makes it hard for the customer to pay them
No kidding.
That's just
Isn't that ridiculous?
It's like jump through all these hoops so then you can give us your money.
Yes.
Wouldn't you think to make it as easy as humanly possible for them to give you money?
Exactly. Well, and then I also got interested in donor acquisition because things are changing so much with the new tax laws. Has made a total difference. The other difference is that we have got to attract younger people, and younger people don't look at giving the same way we do. My kids don't look at it the same way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And especially in the Christian world, we've got to get out there and have kids seriously understand, but you got to get in front of them. And think of the competition that you have today. So you got to be smart. You know, you've got to have something that's quick, and that you can, you know, that you can get there. You've got to understand SEO and what words to use and what words not. See, that's where artificial intelligence is going to come in so big.
Yeah.
Is because it's going to help you to find the right SEO. But you've also, you got to be on the internet. Give you an example. One of the nonprofits that I worked with through Barnabas is abortion survivors. And that's one of the things, human trafficking, eradicating human trafficking, and being very, very pro-life. Those are the two things that I really give a lot of time to. Well, I saw a video of a lady, and she actually was an abortion survivor. And when I say that, those are children that survived an abortion.
Right, right.
And when I heard her speak and heard her story, I mean, you know, that gave me passion.
Yeah.
And when I have passion, then I'm going to support something.
Yep. So we have a few minutes left, but I want to squeeze as much as I can into these minutes. So here's my question for you. You've had a chance to retire, and even we've talked about this, your husband's retired. Why are you not retired? Why not just, retire and just enjoy life and maybe visit different places and then just relax?
We do that. I do that. Okay, I hope this sounds right. I believe that God has told me that I'm not done. I believe that God has given me a lot to share. And I want to do that. The first coaching that I did with Barnabas Group was with Rodney Hammer from Rehope. And when I went there and I saw what they were doing for women who had been trafficked, who had gotten out of that, I have never had anything touch my heart the way that touched my heart. And you learn more about the horrible things that are going on out there. And I don't know if you've ever heard the starfish story or not. No. Okay, hopefully to do this. Two guys are walking on the beach. There's been a big rain, and there are thousands of starfish that have washed up on the beach. The one guy's walking along, and he'll pick one up and throw it back in the ocean. Walks a little farther, picks up, throws one back in the ocean. The other guy stops him, and he says, why are you doing that? He says, there's thousands of these that have washed up. And the other guy picks up one. He says, well, throws it back in the ocean and says, I saved another one. So that's, you save one.
Right.
And I don't believe where in the Bible does it says that you should retire.
I don't see it either. And I think you're not alone with what you said. God wanting you, like, you're not done.
That's right.
And really, you're done when we pass.
That's right.
That's when you're done, not
That's right.
at some certain age. And I firmly believe this. And I'm not at retirement age, but I don't see this changing whatsoever in my mind and my belief of this. As once you don't have a purpose, why even get up?
That's exactly right.
Why?
Do you know how many managing partners that I have known that retired and 2 years later they were gone? They had passed away.
It doesn't surprise me. And the idea of moving to Naples, Florida, and then having, the ability to golf every single day, I think that lasts about a month. And after that, then it just becomes like you ate too much cake. Mm-hmm. You got to earn your cake. You got to eat the broccoli and then you can enjoy that. But you can't just have all pleasure and enjoyment and think that now that's going to fulfill us. No. God put us on this planet to work, to subdue the planet, subdue everything.
He put us in charge.
We got to produce.
That's right. That's right.
How else is his kingdom going to grow?
That's right.
If we're just sitting around on the beach.
Yeah. My grandfather farmed until he was 79 years old.
There you go. And I understand if physically you just, there's some physical reason. Okay, there's other things we can be doing, right? We have our minds. Mm-hmm. There's other things we can be doing. I just think we got to keep going. We got to keep moving.
You do. I truly believe that. Yeah. I have, a firm belief in that.
So as we wrap this up, are you for hire?
Of course.
This is through Success by Design. What kind of services are you offering?
Okay. One of the things that I do with nonprofits is I do transformative social media for donor acquisition. And here again, I have a process where we offer free, just like you and I were talking about. We offer something for free. We offer information in the form of an ebook. I write an ebook, and with the idea for getting more donors. I also do presentation coaching, which I do for Barnabas, but I have done that with companies starting out. I'm doing some business consulting right now with a new startup business, and it's a business that is what I call a caring business, and it's someone who's starting a business to work with eradicating human trafficking. Second business I've done with that. I've done presentations on recruiting, giving my, how do you recruit? Pretty much anything in the business world. So many people, how many people have a strategic plan? It's like, okay, I like to cook, so I'm going to go start a restaurant.
Right.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Do you, and the other thing that I recommend that most businesses don't do is a feasibility study. Yeah. When I started Marilyn Arnold Designs, I did a feasibility study.
A lot of people don't even know what that means.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So make sure you contact Marilyn because she can definitely help you with that. What's your website?
MarilynWArnold.com.
Oh, easy. So make sure you guys visit our website about our fathers.business, and her page will have your website link on there. So it's very easy to get in touch with you. But thank you so much, Marilyn, for coming on the show. This has been an absolute blessing.
Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.